mixed ethnic kids out of the war zone in the middle of a war and put them into American homes and schools. That should not have been able to happen. It certainly could not happen today. But it brought out the best of what America can be. There's a story in the Hadith where Muhammad is walking with his disciples, and one of his disciples says, "What do you do? What should we do when we find evil in the world?" And evil is whenever you find suffering and exploitation. And Muhammad turned to them and said, "Well, if you find evil in the world, you have to change it with your bare hands." The disciples all were pretty quiet for a while. And then finally, Muhammad turned to them and said, "If you see evil in the world and you don't know what to do about it, and you don't know how to change it with your bare hands, you have a responsibility to take it into your heart." I told this to a Christian monk friend of mine, and he said, "Yeah, that's what we Christians would call prayer." And when I look at the Bosnian Student Project and my own experience, I was the director of the Interfaith and International Director of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, a 100-year-old interfaith pacifist organization. And although it was primarily Christian, and here were Christians killing Muslims in the name of God. And I thought, what are we going to do? How can I respond? I was so aware, and I so struggled. And I took it into my heart. And then God made a way for us to be able to change it with our bare hands. And it was a miracle. I was called to meet a local Sufi sheikh who I'd never met before, who had visited Bosnia. And he said, I visited Bosnia and I discovered all these really bright students over there. And we were in Croatia, and they were all kicked out of their university because they're Muslim or mixed family. And, they have no schools, they have no way to, and he used to be a university professor. He said, I know quite a few of these would do well in American schools. And he came back and he wrote to 300 schools. He said, would you give a scholarship, a full tuition scholarship, to a qualified Bosnian student who can no longer attend the university in their own country because of the war or because of religious prejudice? And we will find the students, we will bring them to you if you will give them a full tuition scholarship. We'll even find families to take care of them if you don't cover food and housing. 300 schools. One evangelical Christian college in the Midwest wrote back and said, well, we would be glad to accept a Bosnian student as long as they were Christian. So Tosin was he had totally failed. And he had heard about the Fellowship of Reconciliation, that they were an interfaith and sometimes supported Muslims. And so he called our headquarters and he said, I've recently come back from Croatia. Would somebody want to come and meet with me and hear my story? So I was the interfaith secretary, so I went over there and I met with him. He told, the incredible stories of the people in the refugee camps and then what was happening to the Bosnian students in Zagreb. And they said, well, what will the FOR do? And I said, well, FOR we're a peace organization. We'll write a good article about the situation there. We do demonstrations. We'll do a good demonstration. Maybe we could organize a trip like you went on and go to Croatia and interview people and then come back and write about it. And Tosin looked at me and he said, yeah. He said, those are all really good things. But he said, would you help me find a school for just 1 or 2 qualified Bosnian students? So I went back to my board, and the FOR said, well, you know, we're a peace organization. We do peace. We teach about it. We do theology on it. And we do conferences. But we don't really deal with people. But if you want to write an article in the Fellowship magazine about this, you can do that. So I wrote an article in Fellowship magazine. It turned out that there are quite a few professors and chaplains in colleges and universities across the United States who are members of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And they wrote back to the FOR and said, yeah, we would like to help. And there were like 4, 5 colleges in the Midwest who said, we would like you to come and speak about it. So the only school that had offered to give scholarships was a high school, the Green Meadow Waldorf School in Chestnut Ridge, New York, offered scholarships. And so Tosin brought over these high school students and college students who wanted to do high school to work on their English. And so I asked if there were volunteers. So 4 Bosnian students, I loaded them in my station wagon, and we did a week and a half tour over 5 colleges in the Midwest. And in each of the colleges, I would do a bit of a background on the Bosnian Student Project. And then I would ask one of the students to tell their story. And I told them, I don't want any rhetoric. I don't want any political analysis. I want you to tell the audience what happened to you and your family and your community. Nothing political, no analysis. Just tell the story. And as you all know, the stories are tragic. And so at the end of the presentation, the question and answer, people would say, well, this is really horrible. What can we do? And I would say, well, there's this Jarahi mosque that's offered to bring Bosnian students. If you would offer a scholarship to 1 or 2 Bosnian students, we would bring them to your campus. And out of the 5 colleges, I think we got 4 scholarships. And when I came back to the FOR and talked with Tosin Bayrak, he realized that FOR had a reputation in the United States. It was a 100-year-old pacifist organization, and it had good networks, and we could actually get scholarships. And the Jarahi Order of America, fantastic organization, but they couldn't get scholarships. And this is a symbol of a really great man. He said, Doug, he said, you are in a position where you can actually get the scholarships. You will be the director, and I will be your volunteer. That is the symbol of a really great man. He did not want or need to be in the front. He pushed me to the front and said, you have to do it, and I will be your volunteer. And it was not only him, but his wife, Helen Morgan from the mosque, came, and I actually hired her as my assistant. And then in Bosnia, this could have never happened, except that when Tosin had met the students in Zagreb, the students had organized themselves a little bit to try to figure out what to do, and he had introduced them to the World University Service, that the Austrian branch of the World University Service had a branch in Zagreb, and he introduced them, and actually, I think they got 2 scholarships to the University of Graz for students, but obviously there were a lot more students than that. And so we said, well, would you, as a World University Service, be willing to help us find the students, screen the students, help them to prepare them for their interviews? And they said yes. At first they did it for free, and then eventually we were taking over their whole life because we were placing many more students than they were. And then we would pay them a small amount to do that. And they had an office in Sarajevo and an office in Zagreb. And they could contact the students. They could pull together their resumes. And then we would, when a college would say, yeah, we can take a student, we would have a student send 1-page faxed bio of kind of who they were and why they wanted to go. And so if the school would offer, we would send them 4 resumes of 4 different students. So we didn't pick any of the students. The resumes were collected by World University Service. We made sure that we got students that would be successful at the level of the university that was offering the scholarship. Because the one thing that we knew is we had to be absolutely successful, and we were. We did not have a single failure academically in our program. So we chose students that would be appropriate. They were chosen locally, and then we arranged to bring them there. But we also had a network of Serbs, Croats, and Muslims in the former Yugoslavia that helped to get the students out of the war zone, get them to Croatia, and then World University Service would take care of them for a few days, prep them for their interviews at the American Embassy, and arrange for travel. So without that network, this could have never happened. And then in the United States, we had an amazing network of people. It started with the Fellowship of Reconciliation and the Jiraki Order. But I did a survey once of looking at who the host families were and who the organizers were. And it was not Fellowship of Reconciliation or the Jiraki Order. These were people, individuals, who were inspired by the idea of this and said, yes, we can do this. And what happened was a miracle. We were able to place students in homes, 160 students in homes all across this country. We had 2 Muslim students in 2 Jewish rabbi homes. We had many Muslim students in Christian ministers' homes. We had many Muslim host families. In 1998, the Fellowship of Reconciliation was invited to give a paper at a UNICEF conference on religion and education. And we had one of our, and it was taking place in Granada, Spain. And one of our Bosnian Student Project students was in Spain on her year abroad there. So I contacted her and said, do you want to come with me and we'll do this? And we went. It was very interesting. She was the only female Muslim at the conference, but was totally accepted by all of the other Muslim participants there. Lots of Christians, a few Jews. And we gave our presentation, and the response from the Christian clergy that I met there in that UNICEF conference is, this project could never have happened in Europe. We can't comprehend that you would put a Muslim student in a rabbi's home or in a clergyman's home. That could not happen in Europe. The United States has a history of being a country that treated all people equally, regardless of race, religion, or ethnicity. Unfortunately, it is a history that is being intentionally destroyed right now in this country. But it was the values of our country 30 years ago. 30 years ago, when I went into the American Embassy in Sarajevo, there was a glorification of the civil rights movement in the embassies. One of the selling points that I could use when I went to universities in the United States was that here is your chance to demonstrate that America believes in a multicultural society that does not discriminate on the basis of race, or religion. And we can prove this superior way. We can demonstrate to the world by taking in buzz. That was a selling point. And colleges and universities responded to that. That is a tradition which this program came out of. It is a value that we need to continue to strive for because it is being intentionally destroyed in this country as we are living today. But this is a testimony of what American value, the best of America, the best of all of our religious traditions can and should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. And I was so moved by so many of the